Brad Brown, thanks for your time. You found a medium level of risk in the financial planning industry. What does medium mean?
Thanks, David. A medium level of risk means that the financial planning sector, which is the group we've done this particular assessment on, faces some risks in relation to criminal threats. They have a number of vulnerabilities that their businesses have, to which they have to address, and there's also a minor consequences for their business operations and more broadly for the community in relation to that engagement.
So what are those vulnerabilities, the main ones the industry needs to address? So
principally, a financial planner will engage with customers, and customers of all different types. So they have to be aware of the different customers that they're engaged with and the type of activities those people actually might be involved in. They actually also have to be aware of the channels in which they operate. So some financial planners actually meet face-to-face. Other people now increasingly use online communication. So that means they might face different types of risks. Some financial planners are actually engaged in activity that means that they not only work with individuals in Australia, but they also work with individuals outside of Australia, which actually poses a different set of risks that they may be involved in.
And not surprisingly, I suppose you found cyber crime is the greatest of these risks.
Yeah, certainly in our engagement with the financial planning sector, they indicated themselves that this is certainly a growing area of concern. It's a growing area of concern across law enforcement, and it's a growing area of concern for government in terms of online activity.
So what would be the most common, when you're talking about the financial planning industry, what would be the most common type of cybercrime that you've found in this study?
I think the most common type of cybercrime is really the online vulnerabilities around email. So the compromise of emails, the potential hacking of emails, which may actually then appear to be from the financial planner that you actually thought you were engaged with, but you actually may not be.
And people obviously think it's from their financial planner and are making transactions or shifting money accordingly, and it's going into the wrong place.
That's exactly correct.
All right, and look, you've also looked at some other prominent threats, scams, false documents, and suspected cases of fraud by financial planners. How often is that happening?
Yeah, certainly in our engagement with a broader sector industry in relation to this risk assessment, we actually found that there was reporting not only in relation to the customers that the financial planners engage with, but certainly some of the bigger financial institutions will also report suspicions in relation to the actual planners themselves and whether they may or may not be acting appropriately. So it's certainly, by proportion, not as significant in terms of the reporting that we receive, but it is something that people should be aware of. People need to know that their financial planning advice that they receive is by someone that actually has their best interests in mind.
How do you do that? I mean, if you're dealing with a respectable company, a financial planner, I mean, how do you know that the particular agent you might be dealing with isn't as upstanding as you might have thought?
I think there's several ways to do that, David. First and foremost, I think you can refer to the ASIC financial planning advice list. So at least you can actually do some checks and balances or due diligence in advance of that sort of engagement in terms of what you're seeking from the financial planner. And I think then it's really about ongoing scrutiny of the information that and the advice that you receive.
Now, what about the risk of terrorist financing here? It seems from looking at your report, this is on a pretty small scale when you're looking at the financial planning sector.
That's correct, David. I think what we found is that there's been very few instances of the reporting of terrorist activity or terrorism financing activity. But what I would like to say in relation to that is that what we're seeking from this report is that financial planners actually are aware of that, they increase their understanding of that, and actually can potentially provide additional reporting into the future.
Well, indeed, you do point out in the report, just to read from it, that financial planners are in a trusted position. They often receive detailed personal and financial information from their customers, and this means they are in a unique position to observe anomalous behaviour, detect potentially suspicious sources of funds or wealth. And I suppose that goes to criminal sources, terrorist sources, all manner of things here. Are you saying the industry needs to do more with the information that it's got and report more when something looks suspicious?
Absolutely, David. That is exactly what the report actually aims to do. I mean, ultimately the report is to build a shared understanding between ourselves, our partners in law enforcement, and also the actual sector themselves, to actually build their understanding, to help strengthen the controls that they have in place, to actually give them the information, which means they can more easily detect the type of crimes and activity that we are focused upon disrupting and preventing.
And a final one, Brad Brown, this follows a similar report you did looking at the superannuation industry. How does financial planning as an industry compare in terms of a medium risk for financial planning? How does that compare with what you found in the superannuation sector?
Yeah, so there's actually quite some similarities between them. So in relation to the superannuation risk assessment, which AUSTRAC provided earlier this year, it was also a medium risk, and similar crimes were also found. So there's certainly an increase in cyber-enabled activity in relation to the superannuation sector as well. What the aim is that understanding. And so certainly in terms of the medium risk here, it's slightly lower, but what the ultimate aim is to actually provide the information and have that shared understanding of risk.
Yeah, well, Brad Brown, it does sound like there's something in this report for both the industry, the financial planners, and the customers to take note of, to ensure that well, everyone's money is safe and isn't being sourced for criminal activity. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.